There's a petition going around right now that is trying to get the US expelled from the UN by invoking Article 6.
The petition isn't just a question of trying to get the US expelled from the UN and whether you support that or not. The petition is a referendum on the principle of accountability. If you believe in the principle of accountability, then you should sign the petition. It's a moral question. Don't think too far ahead. Don't think too far in advance about, well, is this going to be accomplished or not? Is it likely? Has it ever happened before? What about the U.S. funding and so on? No, this is a moral question. This is a question of principle. Do you believe in the principle of the equality of nations, that every nation should have a voice? Do you believe in the principle of a global consensus, that should rule the international order? Or do you believe in American domination? Do you believe in colonization? Do you believe in the impunity of the United States? And do you believe in the American principle that they can buy their way out of accountability or not? This is the referendum. That's what the petition is asking you. So you have to decide for yourself if you have morals, if you have principles, and if those morals and principles are in line with civilized morals and principles, such as the rule of law, international law, global consensus, justice and accountability. And if your morals and your principles are in line with that, then you should just do the very simple thing of clicking on the link and signing the petition.
I saw one question. The United Nations depends on the United States for security and military. The EU would never expel the US.
No, you have it backwards. The US depends on the UN for being able to send its military all over the world. You have it backwards. The United Nations isn't depending on the US to try to stop conflicts that the US starts. The United Nations isn't depending upon the U.S. To intervene and bring peace in places where they have brought war. That doesn't even make any sense. You have it backwards. The United States is depending upon the UN in order to be able to continue spreading war and chaos. As I just said, the United Nations isn't depending upon them to bring peace into the world. The United States has been doing nothing but bring war into the world, and the United Nations has not been able to bring peace into the world because of the U.S. Being in the United Nations and controlling and dominating the United Nations. With regards to the budget, if the United States was expelled from the United Nations and its ability to sow conflict and discord and war and carnage all around the world, if that was restricted as a result of them not being able to dominate and control the United Nations and preserve their impunity, they would have more money in their budget, because it wouldn't be sapped away and have to funnel all of their money away to try to handle the conflicts that the United States has started and the conflicts that the United States is perpetuating all around the world. So I think if they expelled the U.S. from the UN, they would find that they had more money to spend than they do with the United States in the UN.
I just wanted to add to what Akhi Shahid said as well. If you think about it, if the United States is removed from the United Nations, they no longer have the support of the United Nations, which means they are no longer able to commit those same war crimes, which is what Shahid said. But if you also think about that, within the next few decades of the US not being able to leech off of people's resources, off of countries' GDP and everything, that GDP growth of many different countries will increase. And of course, when the United States is out of the United Nations, the percentage of what people have to pay is going to increase as well, because that 23% that they're paying right now needs to be covered. And so over the next few decades, while other countries' GDP growth is increasing, they are going to be more able to pay that percentage, and the loss will no longer be a loss for the United Nations. It might be a loss for the first maybe 1 or 2 years, but after that, it is going to be a gain. So you lose a little bit before you start gaining a lot. A lot more countries are going to be more powerful, a lot more countries are going to have a lot more money, and the stability of a lot of countries is going to be a lot better, because the United States is not going to be able to meddle in these countries. And ultimately, that will increase power within the Arabian world. And of course, we can see that Saudi Arabia's economy is increasing very rapidly, and so they will be able to start funding even more. And Saudi Arabia is leaning towards the global south, or so-called global majority, even more, because they are not renewing contracts with the United States, and so global south will rise, United Nations will increase with their control over the world instead of being controlled by the United States.
Everything that you said is correct, mashallah. I would also say that other countries would be more inclined to pay more for their membership of the United Nations if they knew that the United Nations was no longer just going to be a tool for internationalizing American policy, and if they knew that they were actually going to have a voice, because they're paying now just in order to be overruled by the United Nation, by the United States. So what if they're not being overruled by the United States? What if they actually have a voice and their voice actually matters? Well, they'd be more inclined to pay more if it was necessary in terms of their fees for being a member of the United Nations. This is an example among many of the corrosive impact that American domination of the United Nations has had on international relations and our understanding of international relations and our understanding of even morality and principles and ethics. Because we're actually asking what you're actually asking when you talk about the funding, the U.S. funding, is whether or not it's okay and acceptable for a country to buy impunity, for a country to be able to buy the ability to dominate the rest of the planet. Do you approve of that? I mean, if that you can actually accept that you can buy your way out of the rules, because as we keep saying, Article 6 is in the Charter of the United Nations, which says that any country, any member state that has persistently violated the principles of the Charter should be expelled from that organization. Now, you're making the argument that because America pays so much, that shouldn't apply to them. I mean, think about how that has corrupted your thinking. If that's even an acceptable thing to talk about, that's even an acceptable issue to raise, that you have no expectation whatsoever that justice and accountability should be applied to someone or to a state or to a member of an organization if they just pay more money. You see how corrupted that has made your mind and your understanding of how things should work. That's because the United States has done that to you. The United States has made you think that way. So any reason that you might give, I've said this before, any reason that you might give for why you think that the United States cannot be expelled from the United Nations is a reason why you should work for it to be expelled from the United Nations. That's a reason why you should click on the link and sign the petition.
You know, the moment people hear United States and it's automatic, it doesn't matter, you can't go up against them. It's already this defeatist attitude about nobody can win against them or nobody can cut them down to size, whatever it is that they tell themselves in their mind. But the bottom line is that they already, the moment they hear it's United States, they already feel defeated. And that's not the case, because the United Nations Charter provides the steps and provides the way to be able to hold them accountable. So the mindset should already change, whether it's with regards to money, whether it's they automatically see that it's the United States. Doesn't matter. People need to change the mindset of that it can't be done. When it can be done, they just don't know, or they just don't care to find out what the real truth about the matter is.
I'm telling you, if you had a vote today in the General Assembly about whether or not to invoke Article 6 and expel the United States from the UN, you would have the largest majority in the history of a General Assembly vote voting in favor of expelling the United States from the UN. I don't know if you're following global politics. By your defeatist tone, it sounds like you're not, because you're not aware of the changes in global power dynamics and the extent to which the United States is weakened on the global stage, the extent to which they have been isolated on the global stage. You don't seem to be aware of the rise of the global South and the rise of BRICS and the extent to which the United States doesn't seem to be able to get its way anywhere in the world anymore. So, of course, if there was a vote in the General Assembly, what you need is a 2/3 majority. And I'm telling you, if you took the vote today, if you took the vote tomorrow, you would get as close to a unanimous vote as you've ever seen in the General Assembly to kick the United States out. The United States doesn't have the power that they used to have. You need to follow world events closely. Don't follow whatever you heard from your father or your grandfather about the way things were back in the 1980s or the 1990s. This is 2024, it's not 1994. Back at the time that the Soviet Union fell, and America was the last man standing, and it was a unipolar world. Well, it isn't a unipolar world anymore. People keep talking about maybe there can be a multipolar world. Well, I have news for you. There is a multipolar world. The United States doesn't have the power and the muscle to push its weight around anymore. Not the way it used to be. This is the reality that we live in today. So you have to get over this psychological defeatist mindset, because that's the only thing that they have left over you now. It's just like I've talked about before. It's like slaves on a plantation who don't know that the master in the house is dead already, and you're free to go. You need to get out of your head that the United States is ala kulli shay'in qadir, controller of everything. They're not. They used to have more power than they used to have disproportionate power over the rest of the planet, but they don't have it anymore. So align yourself to the new reality and recalibrate your mentality so that you won't be a defeatist in favor of the United States. Because as I said, it's your own psychological defeatism that's almost the only power they have left.